This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Victim impact statements. The children of a Picou County man tell the court the effect his sexual abuse had on their lives. Sparks fly. Candidates in the riding of Cape Breton-Canso-Antigonish clash in Thursday night's debate. And how Donald Trump's rollback of gay and transgender rights has some people looking to come to Canada.
The weekend is here. It'll be a dry start to the weekend with increasing clouds and some wet weather to finish the weekend as our next system rolls in. Your full forecast is coming up.
Three siblings who survived years of sexual abuse by their father told court in Picou they live with the trauma every day. The victims, who are now in their 50s, revealed the impact of abuse inflicted on them by 86-year-old Douglas Guthrow Sr., who has already pleaded guilty to decades-old crimes. Gareth Hampshire has this report from Supreme Court in Pictou.
This was the chance for Susan Farrell, Sherry Colbert and Doug Robertson to tell the court how their father's campaign of sexual abuse continues to affect them. They read victim impact statements revealing it was guilt and shame that led them to keep secret what happened when they were children, manipulated by their own father at the Alma area family home where they never felt safe.
The three of us have a life sentence, and no one. He did not take any our needs, our rights, anything into consideration. So it's a life sentence.
Her brother said he suffers from PTSD after a childhood in which he says he was destroyed for his father's pleasure.
It affects me every day, waking up and thinking about it, and but you gotta kind of push it away a little bit, and move on, and do what you want, and you stick with your family and your friends and everybody that supports you.
Their younger sister said even times of happiness are tangled with pain. They didn't know what was happening to each other until much later, but feel stronger now they've taken a stand, even going as far as removing a publication ban on their identities as sexual assault victims.
Your face is out there, your name is out there, and I've had a lot of people reach out, but I just don't want to live in hiding anymore.
They're all supported by friends and family on a day they had to relive their pain.
Yeah, it just sucks because it's just like my whole life I've been around my dad and my two aunts, and it's just like to think about that constant feeling was in the back of their minds, just trying to live a normal life is horrible.
The Crown is seeking a prison term of 9 to 12 years.
The length of time that the abuse occurred, it was 19 plus years. There were 3 victims, each one in succession, an egregious breach of trust, and the acts themselves were horrific.
But the defense wants a conditional sentence served in the community.
For someone who is approaching his 90s, would it be life in prison sentence? And the second issue is whether the institution would be able to accommodate his health conditions.
The Crown and defense are a long way apart as far as the sentence Guthrow should face. The judge asked the defense to provide medical evidence showing he has a condition that should be taken into consideration at the next hearing in June. Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Pictou.
A forensic psychiatrist has been granted a request for more time to complete an assessment of a woman accused of stabbing a child on a street in downtown Halifax in February. 19-year-old Elliot Chorney is charged with attempted murder and a weapons offense for the February attack. She was arrested shortly after the boy was stabbed at a bus stop. She's been in custody ever since. During a court appearance in March, Judge Alonzo Wright ordered a 30-day psychiatric assessment to see if Chorney should be held criminally responsible for the charges. In a letter to Judge Wright that was read in court on Friday, psychiatrist Dr. Rhys Cronfley said he's found issues that, quote, need to be further explored. Chorney will return to court on May 9th. A building with multiple businesses on Quinpool Road in Halifax had to be demolished after an early morning fire. Fire crews responded to the blaze just after midnight. Halifax Fire says everyone in the building got out by the time they arrived on the scene and no one was injured. The building, which contained 4 businesses and 3 apartments, sustained extensive damage. Earlier today, officials made the decision to demolish part of the building. The cause of the fire is under investigation. The Provincial Health Authority has issued a tender for the master planning of the next phase of the QEII redevelopment project, and that work could include a new building. The tender calls for further development of the Halifax Infirmary campus and the Victoria General Hospital campus. The aim is to get a clear understanding of specific projects to address the failing and inadequate infrastructure and reflect the changing healthcare needs. According to the documents, the work could also require plans for a new QE2 building. The tender says that would only happen if the province and health authority determine it is required. The health authority refused to make someone available to comment in this story. All right, Ryan, Friday, sunshine, and no snow. That's a trifecta.
Yes, for sure. A big win compared to where we started this week, Amy. And we may see a few flakes flying, though, by the end of the weekend, unfortunately. Yes, it is April still, and we've got to remind ourselves of that, though. A pretty solid start to the weekend. For Saturday, temperatures are going to be ranging between about 6 and 10 degrees. The warmest temperatures with this easterly flow are going to be away from that onshore flow. So the Northumberland shore into Colchester, Cumberland, and back into the Annapolis Valley. That's going to be where we'll see our double-digit potential for Saturday. Increasing clouds and maybe a late-day shower in the southwest on Saturday. Showers widespread on Sunday with drizzle and some steadier periods of rain starting to work their way in from west to east throughout the day, more so the late day into the evening. It's thanks to this system, which will eventually be moving into the region. As you can see on Sunday, there are those showers and then those steadier periods of rain. Some snow mixing in for New Brunswick. We may see a few flakes mixing in over higher terrain areas on Sunday. But yeah, it's April for sure.
It sure is. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
It was a lively debate in the riding of Cape Breton-Canso Antigonish Thursday night. Two seasoned politicians are running in the race, and as the CBC's Kyle Moore reports, there were heated exchanges about federal party leaders and Donald Trump.
His suggestion of the 51st state, it would actually benefit people here.
The Cape Breton-Canso Antigonish All Candidates debate Thursday night was spirited and at times heated. There were lots of verbal jabs and several mentions of U.S. President Donald Trump.
This is about trying to sell you a leader based on a motive of fear.
How do you expect Pierre Poilievre to stand up to Donald Trump when he's looked up to him, when he's copied him, when he's emulated everything he's done? What we have with Pierre Poilievre is MAGA light.
Conservative Alan McMaster took his own digs at Batiste, criticizing Liberal spending, the carbon tax, and Batiste's past wish to run in a different riding.
I'm excited about representing this area. You are the second choice of the Liberal candidate who wanted to run in the Sydney riding.
The two seasoned politicians continue to spar back and forth over climate change, with Jaime accusing McMaster and the Conservatives of having no plan.
Cap and trade would have put Nova Scotia in a marketplace with Quebec and California.
It's not real, according to the Conservatives.
It's okay. Well, let's let Alan talk now.
I see he's getting a little flustered.
Well, it's because our future. I want to look my children in the eye and say, when I was on this stage, I protected their future.
You gave them the carbon tax.
All right, the clock is on, so...
Reconciliation was also discussed in a riding that includes 5 First Nations communities, along with affordability and the cost of living. NDP candidate Joanna Clark said her party is focused on cutting taxes.
The GST cut that the NDP is proposing is an equitable solution to help everybody save.
The debate featured all 5 people who are running to become the riding's MP, including independent candidate Rebecca Wall and Ryan Smith, a member of the People's Party of Canada. About 300 people attended the event here in Port Hawkesbury that lasted almost 2 hours. Voters will have their say on Election Day, April 28th. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Port Hawkesbury.
The main focus of the campaign has been the trade war with the United States. But the leaders of some Canadian communities hardest hit by climate change feel that issue has gone ignored. Dozens of mayors and councillors from across the country, including here in Nova Scotia, have signed an open letter asking federal leaders to take action. Brett Ruskin reports.
This letter looks at what it calls bold but achievable goals for federal politicians should they get elected during this campaign. It looks at things like a national east-west-north clean energy grid, a national high-speed rail network, increasing the amount of housing available by creating 2 million new energy-efficient and affordable homes, creating a retrofit program to improve and increase the energy efficiency of existing homes, making them easier to cool in the summer, easier to heat in the winter, as well as a climate resiliency and response program and fund to help during the next climate emergency. Canada certainly has seen its share of climate emergencies over the last couple of years, whether it's hurricanes that hit here on the east coast, wildfires farther out on the west coast, and likewise this letter, this open letter, has signatories all across the country as well. Mayors and councillors who say that the main topic of discussion during this campaign has understandably been the relationship between Canada and the United States, but that there should be room made for additional topics of discussion that center around climate change. Has been a topic of discussion in previous campaigns, previous years, talking about kind of the national discussion around climate change. The signatories to this open letter hope that it once again emerges as one of the main topics of discussion during this ongoing campaign. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
The Progressive Conservatives won the last provincial election in resounding fashion, and they were also tops in election spending. Documents released by Elections Nova Scotia show the PC campaign cost about $1.4 million. The party's top expenses included advertising, polling, research, and travel. The PCs won 43 seats, a record in Nova Scotia. The Liberals spent a little more than $1 million, but won only 2 seats in the election. Spending information for the NDP was not yet available. The NDP won 9 seats in the election. As American President Donald Trump rolls back rights for gay and transgender people, some 2S LGBTQ plus people in the U.S. are looking to Canada as a place to live. The CBC's Juliana Grillo spoke with 2 people who are coming to Nova Scotia looking for a welcoming community.
This art installation in Halifax represents 2S LGBTQ plus visibility, something that some in the U.S. feel has been taken away from them, which is why some are looking to move to Canada, including here in Nova Scotia.
I heard that Halifax was pretty welcoming. I heard that Nova Scotia has the largest per capita concentration of transgender nonconforming people in all of Canada. And I have some connections up here, so I decided to come up here just to, see what it was like.
Since being president, Donald Trump rolled back protections for racial minorities, gay and transgender people.
It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female.
Juliana Antonimus grew up in Arkansas, where they were an activist. They later moved to New York, looking for more opportunities in a more inclusive state. But after the first few weeks of the current administration, they say the illusion of inclusivity wore off.
If I was feeling that way in what was once my safe space, because the rules had changed, I recognized that I needed to do the thing that I had done once, which was find a new safe space.
Since the election in November, organizations here in Nova Scotia, including Rainbow Refugee Association and the Immigrant Services Association, have received a number of inquiries coming from Americans about moving to the province. And it's not only Americans who are coming to Nova Scotia. Thomas Cooper is a gay man from Cape Breton who moved south of the border 27 years ago. Now, he's coming back home. He chose not to renew his visa and move to Canada because of the Trump administration's policies regarding 2S LGBTQ plus individuals, immigrants, and the economy.
I truly think that this guy will just, throw anybody under the bus and no one's safe, including his own donors, right? So it's exhausting. It's exhausting to follow. I kind of went away from it.
Cooper says he is happy to return home to spend time with his family in a more welcoming community. Juliana Grillo, CBC News, Halifax.
And there's a live shot of Halifax from our harbor cam tonight. Ryan's up next with the full weather forecast. Do stay with us. All right, we're back to talk weather, and the weekend is here, so it sounds like make the most of Saturday, right?
Yeah, make the most of Saturday. Sunday, not a write-off, but jacket, umbrella, make sure you're ready to go. We will see some showers that are working in. We've been tracking this system all week, and it's been a tough one to nail down, but it does look like the clouds are going to dominate. We've got some shower chances throughout the day, but the wettest of weather does look set to kind of roll in throughout the afternoon from west to east. So yeah, we'll break it all down.
The morning at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. Have a look at our webcam video. This from Lower Truro.
That looks pretty nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, tranquil.
I love those chairs. They're always waiting for somebody,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. And yeah, not a bad Friday evening out there. And really not a bad Friday. I mean, we had temperature highs today that were in the double-digit range at the Collegeville station at Antigonish. Sydney hit double digits today, as well as Truro, and you can see temperatures still quite mild. That Pictou County, the Caribou Point Station, that is obviously an error there. -5 is not the current temperature, so we'll see if we can get that sorted out here over the weekend. As you can see, winds not too strong, which has been nice. That light wind today. We did see a couple of showers over New Brunswick, PEI, but pretty quiet here across the province. This little wave is pushing through, and then off to the north. This is where the bulk of the wet weather is coming, and that will roll in, as we said, kind of in the second half of the weekend. High pressure dominating from the Great Lakes back into the south and west. 37 degrees in Phoenix right now. You want to talk about spring getting underway. And you can see 20 degrees in Regina, 15 in Winnipeg, and then this big dip in the jet stream. This is where this trough is digging into the eastern part of the country. And this is where we're going to be tapping into some of that cooler air towards the end of the weekend. Temperatures tonight near zero for the Tri-County area. Most of us in the -2 to -5 range. And as we run you through the timeline, you can see things clearing out as we move into tomorrow morning. The clouds building in pretty early in the morning for the south and west, but I do think we will see some sunny breaks. A brighter start central and east towards Cape Breton, and that cloud is going to try to work its way in throughout the day. Pretty dry air over eastern parts of the province, though, and so I do think Cape Breton will stay a mix of sun and cloud throughout the day. Showers starting to roll their way into the Tri-County area. This model is a little more aggressive, not only on the timing, but also of the potential for some cool air. You can see it is throwing a few flakes in the mix. I'm not expecting that, though we may see a couple of flakes by the time we get to Sunday morning, as you will see. Temperatures, we are looking at 6 to 10 degrees across Cape Breton, 9, 10 degrees Sherbrooke back towards Antigonish. It is an easterly flow tomorrow. So that is where temperatures will kind of be coolest in those onshore winds. Double-digit potential towards northern areas. Truro back towards Windsor, Halifax, 6, 7 degrees, but coolest right along the water. Double-digit potential through the valley, and 5, 6, and 7 degrees for the Tri-County area with those showers marching in. And again, this model here, I think, has the better timeline. And then you can see this is the European model. It is indeed showing some wet snow mixing in for New Brunswick on Sunday morning. Potentially cool enough for some flakes to mix in here across Nova Scotia as well over higher terrain in the morning. And then note into the afternoon, a lot more darker green here as the system starts to approach, moisture wrapping into this system. And so we will see the potential for showers in the morning with some drizzle and then steadier periods of rain working in throughout the afternoon. That appears to me to be the best scenario right now. And then you can see some snow. Yes, New Brunswick may see some accumulating snow for Sunday night. By the way, our temperatures on Sunday, not great. East to northeast winds, so we're going to be looking at 4 to 6 degrees for most. And then periods of rain continuing Sunday night into Monday morning. And this will slowly kick out, maybe a flurry Monday evening over the Cobequid Mountains as well. So we're not completely out of the woods with the flurry chances. Tuesday, temperatures back up into the double digits. Looks like a little bit of a cool push again mid next week. The models have been really not doing a great job over that next week time frame, Amy, but looking like we're coming around here slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely. They're challenging you.
They are, definitely.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Coming up, 3 weeks into the campaign, we speak with a political scientist about how the parties are faring. We've passed the halfway point in the federal election campaign, and for a look at how the race is going, we're joined by Acadia political science professor Aaron Crandall. So rally size has become a contentious election issue. CBC did some counting at both Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney's rallies and found that the actual crowd sizes were significantly smaller than reported. I'm just wondering why you think the parties are touting these crowd sizes, and are they actually an accurate reflection of the support they'll get at the ballot box?
This is something I don't think we've seen in Canadian federal elections before. I think part of it is the Conservative Party has really focused on these big rallies where you have thousands of people coming out and making the effort to come from all parts of the province where the rally is happening. I think part of it is being drawn from what we saw in previous U.S. elections, where President Trump relied very heavily on this type of campaigning, and it's to demonstrate momentum. But if we're asking the question, does the size of the rally correspond with what we're seeing in the polls? No, I think it demonstrates an enthusiasm amongst a party's core supporters that they're willing to come out. But if you see the Conservatives drawing the largest crowd, that does mean that core Conservatives are very motivated. It doesn't necessarily mean that the electorate is feeling the same way.
Now, staying with the Conservatives, they're limiting media access to Pierre Poilievre, allowing only 4 questions from hand-picked reporters. I'm wondering what you make of that strategy and whether it's working for him.
I think that it's consistent with Poilievre's general approach with the media as leader of the Conservative Party. There has been a skepticism of what they would refer to as the mainstream media. And I think for any political leader, there is a desire to perhaps be able to maintain control over their message. I think it's also indicative of a campaign that is probably not doing as well as it would want, and is very cognizant of that fact, and so is trying to limit the types of questions that they're receiving and the public would then be hearing about.
Well, going to the NDP, it looks like Jagmeet Singh is in a fight to keep his own seat in BC. How hard is it to run a federal campaign at the same time?
I think if you're trying to run a national campaign, it puts you in a really difficult position. This campaign has been particularly challenging for the New Democratic Party. They are lower in the polls than they have been in previous recent elections, and it has put this unique pressure, I think, on the party's leader, right? That you are facing the possibility of not being able to hold on to your own riding. The NDP presents itself as a national party. It is a national party. It consistently elects members. But in this type of situation, it does really put a strain on the leader. And the way that federal election campaigns work in Canada is that leaders are front and center. It's a campaign that is about the leaders. And so when one of those party leaders is in a position where they have to focus on the riding, it becomes very challenging, I think, overall for that campaign.
Well, the leaders' debates are coming up, a new type of forum for Liberal leader Mark Carney. I'm just wondering, how much will his lack of experience in politics be a factor?
That's a really good question. We don't really know because he's untested in terms of leaders' debates. This will be his first effort at that. I think when we go into leaders' debates, there is always the potential that you'll have like a breakout moment that turns the campaign. Those moments are really quite exceptional, but they do happen from time to time. I think, especially for Carney, given that his party is in the lead, that they'll be looking for, an okay debate. He does not have to be the best debater on that stage, as long as he comes out relatively solid, with no major gaffes, then I think that they will consider that a win.
What about his performance in the French debate? What will people be looking for there?
Yeah, this is an ongoing kind of point of conversation and interest with Mark Carney as the Liberal Party leader and Prime Minister, is limitations in French. He's already been tested a bit with an interview on Radio Canada called Les Cinq Chefs, and there were kind of obvious limitations to his French during that interview, but he's functionally French for sure. But that will be, I think, of the two debates, the one that the Liberal Party will be the most concerned about, because his French will be more limited than the other leaders that are going to be on that stage.
Well, if there is no defining moment like you mentioned earlier, do debates move the needle at all for voters?
They can, but I think more often than not, they don't. I think the value of debates is that we have this opportunity as voters to see all of the party leaders on stage talking to one another, and we can try to learn about their similarities and differences, and in that way hopefully become more informed voters. There are limitations to that very kind of idealistic goal that I just set out, because sometimes what we learn in debates is less about policy and ideas and more about, the leaders attacking one another. So we'll see how this all unfolds next week, if we are able to learn about the leaders, and especially with Carney being a new leader, their ideas, their policy differences and similarities. But I would not expect, although it is possible, I would not expect that the polls will move a lot coming out of these debates.
All right. Well, we shall see. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, Liberal leader Mark Carney took time away from the federal election campaign to meet with his cabinet committee, saying American tariffs are affecting Canada already. And Canadians who plan to stay in the United States for 30 days or longer must now register online with the U.S. government, which has some snowbirds reconsidering their plans for next winter. Welcome back. Mark Carney took time away from the federal election campaign to meet with his cabinet committee on Canada-U.S. relations and national security. Later, the Prime Minister told reporters discussions had focused on how American tariffs are affecting Canada already.
In the last week, there have been a lot of developments in terms of U.S. tariff policy, reactions from others, including China, really marked tightening in financial conditions, a slowing, the initial signs of slowing in the global economy, impacts that we're starting to see unfortunately, in the Canadian economy, particularly in the Canadian labor market.
Carney said he gave officials instructions to prepare the next government for negotiations with the U.S. after the federal election. Markets have been in turmoil in recent weeks, with U.S. President Donald Trump repeatedly changing course on tariffs. As of now, there are still 25% steel, aluminum, and automobile tariffs on Canadian imports to the U.S. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is still focusing on his party's economic plan, even though some members of his own party want him to talk more on the threat from Donald Trump. Marina von Stackelberg was with Poilievre in St. Catharines, Ontario.
We're at the port in St. Catharines, a major shipping stop along the Welland Canal. This is where Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre re-announced some of his policies he now says would boost Canada's economic activity over the next 5 years by $500 billion.
We need a change in government with a new Conservative leadership that has a Canada First economic action plan. It will be modeled in a lot of ways off the incredible success that Stephen Harper had in the 08-09 crisis.
Poilievre mentioned Stephen Harper several times in this announcement and the fact that he worked under the former Prime Minister as an MP and a cabinet minister. Harper gave Poilievre his endorsement earlier this week, but this is really an attempt to harken back to the last time the Conservatives were in power and a play on that government's management of the economy. But it comes as Harper's former Director of Communications continues to slam this campaign. Corey Teneycke, who was also running Ontario Premier Doug Ford's campaign, is now calling Poilievre's campaign a disaster for having lost a massive lead in the polls over the Liberals. I asked Poilievre about that.
Stephen Harper's former Director of Communications says, quote, blowing a 25-point lead and being 10 points down is campaign malpractice at the highest level. Is it campaign malpractice?
No, I answered that question 2 weeks ago. Liberals and lobbyists want me to stop talking about high food prices. Well, I'm not going to do that.
Poilievre was also asked about the Conservatives' candidate Bas Simers. He is running for a seat here in St. Catharines and has been part of anti-abortion campaigns in the past. Poilievre was asked if he would allow his MPs to bring forward anti-abortion legislation in the House of Commons.
I can guarantee you there will be no laws restricting abortion passed when I'm Prime Minister.
Poilievre has spent the last several days in southern Ontario. These are key ridings to win an election where many seats can swing between the Liberals and Conservatives. Now, for the first time in his campaign, the Conservative leader heads to Windsor for one of his rallies. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, St. Catharines, Ontario.
Jagmeet Singh faced repeated reporter questions about what he hopes to achieve in a campaign where he stopped saying he's running to be Prime Minister. He pointed directly to holding the balance of power in a minority parliament.
We want to make the case for Canadians that Canada works best when one party doesn't have all the power. And when people have voted for New Democrats, they voted for a party and leaders that have gone to Ottawa and fought for them and delivered for them. Because people voted for us, we were able to deliver things like dental care and the first steps towards national pharmacare.
Singh cited other policy achievements by leaders who preceded him. The session with reporters followed a speech at a conference convened by the institute named after former NDP chief Ed Broadbent. The trade war between the United States and China continues to escalate. China has raised import taxes on American goods to 125%. That decision was made in response to the U.S. imposing a 145% levy on some Chinese goods. Chris Reyes has more on the clash between the world's largest economies.
The standoff on tariffs between China and the U.S. enters another day, with each side holding its ground. According to CCTV, the Chinese state broadcaster, President Xi Jinping made his first public statement against the tariffs in a meeting with the visiting Spanish Prime Minister in Beijing. He said there are no winners in a trade war. Going against the world will only lead to self-isolation. Adding to those comments, China's foreign affairs spokesperson Ling Jian, who urged the U.S. to stop extreme pressure and reckless action, adding that any dialogue must be based on equality, respect, and mutual benefit. At the White House briefing, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that President Trump remains open to negotiations with China, but also gave this warning.
If China continues to retaliate, it's not good for China. The United States of America is the strongest, best economy in the world, as evidenced by the more than 75 countries who have called the administration immediately to cut good deals. So the president wants to do what's right for the American people. He wants to see fair trade practices around the globe, and that's his intention and his goal.
As it stands, the U.S. has a 145% levy on Chinese imports, while China has hiked tariffs on American goods to 125% in response.
If this tariff escalation between China and the U.S. continues, it will result in an 80% reduction between China and U.S. trade. And the ripple effect of that across the board can be catastrophic.
According to the Trump administration, the U.S. has not engaged China since imposing the tariffs. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Changes to travel rules have now gone into effect at the American border. For weeks, they've created apprehension and confusion. Now they're a concrete reality for Canadians entering the U.S. The CBC's Linda Ward has the details.
The Alien Registration Act has been in place since 1940, but the executive order issued the day Donald Trump took office, entitled Protecting the American People Against Invasion, requires the Department of Homeland Security to enforce it. The new rule means that Canadian citizens and permanent residents aged 14 and over must now register with the U.S. government if they are going to be in the country for more than 30 days. They must carry one of these. This is the Form I-94. It's an arrival departure record. If you enter by air, most likely you have been automatically registered. If you have a work or a student visa, you're probably covered too. But if you've entered the United States through a land border, most likely you have not been registered. Now, you won't be given any proof when you enter the country as to whether or not you have one of those forms. You need to check. You need to go to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection's website. And if it's not there, then you do need to register online before that 30 days is up. There are penalties for failing to register, up to $5,000 in fines and up to 6 months in jail, or perhaps both. Global Affairs Canada has issued a new warning. Expect scrutiny at ports of entry, including of electronic devices. Comply and be forthcoming in all interactions with border authorities. If you're denied entry, you could be detained while awaiting deportation. Border agents have always had the authority to search your personal electronic devices, your belongings, without a warrant. But given this current climate, the concern is that they may be looking a little more closely.
I am a dual citizen, and so I would travel with my U.S. passport. But I have had situations where border guards at the U.S. crossing have asked me why I live in Canada. Why is it the U.S. not good enough? And from the stories that I've heard, it has definitely ramped up.
Her concerns are not uncommon given the current state of Canada-U.S. relations and the fact that we have seen foreign nationals, including Canadians, who have been detained or denied entry to the United States recently, despite having proper documentation. Linda Ward, CBC News, Toronto.
As the Trump administration slashes health programs and jobs, the Canadian Medical Association sees a silver lining. It wants provinces to quickly reach out to disillusioned doctors and scientists. The CBC's Georgie Smythe shows us the appeal and the challenges to bring doctors north.
Crowds of laid-off healthcare workers line up outside federal buildings as promised cuts to jobs and spending take effect.
As part of President Trump's DOGE workforce reduction initiative, we're going to streamline HHS.
But those losses could be Canada's gain, with agencies here seeing a surge of inquiries from doctors thinking of relocating north.
There's no question the U.S. physicians are interested in coming to Canada.
But Canadian authorities need to turn that interest into offers, she says.
And so if you can demonstrate that you're a province where there's less paperwork, where people can seek out research if they're interested, where they will be supported to do the work that they really feel passionate about, that weighs a lot when someone's thinking about where they want to work.
Currently, only BC, Ontario, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia have fast-track pathways for US physicians to migrate and work in Canada without needing additional exams or supervision.
So I just Googled jobs in Toronto, which is where I'm from, and they had job offers and said that Americans were invited. And I was, whoa.
Dr. Karen Ginsberg is transferring her American qualifications to work in Ontario starting next year.
The sentiment as a physician here in the United States right now is really, it's been quite depressing. It's not the medicine itself. It's the way our country is going right now and the way medicine has gone, and it's a mess. It's a big mess.
But recruiters warn it'll take some time to settle people.
By the time they get licensed, interview process, I mean, you're talking at least a month to maybe 2 months. And then they have to give notice where they are. So we usually say, you're looking at 3 to 6 months.
For years, Canada has turned to other countries to recruit healthcare workers. Now expect provinces to get louder and more targeted to speak directly to Americans. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
A unique hockey tournament in small-town Alberta is underway. The event in Grande Cache has been honoring local unsung heroes for nearly 30 years, and while raising thousands of dollars for the community. The CBC's Adrian Lamb has more.
Stuart Anderson is getting ready. The Icebreaker Memorial Hockey Tournament unlocks this community's passion for the game, an event that goes back to 1998.
Their goal was $500 on the first weekend that they did this tournament, and we've raised $400 and some thousand that we've put back into our community in one way or another. For example, we bought eyeglasses for somebody and sleep machine for a lady, and I'm pretty proud of what we do.
It all started with the death of a local player, Rich Harris. It was cancer at the age of 30.
He was a good brother. Had a lot of friends, and I'm glad they still do what they do. And it's been 27 years, 28 years, and it's still going strong.
Rich was the first honored, but not the last. Now more than 50 players, coaches, refs, and hockey volunteers each have a jersey permanently on display. And everyone shows up for the tournament.
You suddenly get a tap on your shoulder and somebody says, "Hi, Jody, how are you?" And you turn around, it's somebody you went to high school with who's come to support the community and support the Icebreaker because they know how much it means to us.
And it's like a homecoming. Everybody comes back and you sit and visit and catch up with old friends and reminisce. It's a wonderful experience for the town.
Michael Balan's brother and dad are both on the wall.
All the families are invited down onto the ice at the end of the tournament, and they recognize the people that have gone by, and it's a really wonderful, moving experience.
We'll make a list of last-minute things, and
it's what keeps Stuart Anderson going. His mom is also remembered at the rink, a longtime hockey volunteer. He and his brothers grew up playing street hockey together.
I have 4 brothers, and we've never actually ever played ice hockey together. Last year, they all came up, and we decided that they're gonna play, so they came and played. And, we had fun. We didn't do well, but we had a great time, and it was nice to be able to play a shift with all my brothers. So.
More memories being made this weekend as they honor the unsung heroes of the game as the ice breaks on another season. Adrian Lamb, CBC News, Grande Cache.
Well, Canadian and U.S. stocks closed higher today, capping off a tumultuous week that saw huge drops and spikes, driven largely by tariff headlines out of the United States. There's a look at the markets as we go to break. Nova Scotia. And this is Nova Scotia on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News Nova Scotia, streaming now. All right, the weekend has arrived. Not perfect, but you know what? It's still a weekend.
At the end of the day, it's still Saturday.
Can't argue
It's
with
still
that.
Sunday. We'll take it. I want to start with our viewer picture of the day and have a look at this. We'll zoom in. We've had a lot from this neck of the woods over the last couple of weeks ahead of St. Margaret's Bay back here, and Cheryl with this beautiful picture.
Nice.
And she said she thought that maybe this was an appropriate quote, especially for this week. Quote, "No winter lasts forever. No spring skips its turn." And that is a quote from Hal Borland. And fitting
Very
indeed.
poetic. Yeah,
yes.
love it.
Thanks to Cheryl for this picture and the quote. We really appreciate it. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. So your forecast for Saturday, temperatures ranging between 6 and 10 degrees. Easterly winds coming in off the Atlantic mean those temperatures are going to be coolest in and along the Atlantic coastline. Will be warmest for the valley, Cobequid Bay, and up in and around the Northumberland shore. That's where we'll see our best chances of getting to the double digits. No double digits on tap for Sunday. Clouds, shower chances in the morning with drizzle. The northeast winds on Sunday will be 20, gusting 30 to 40. Those will keep temperatures cool. And we're going to be watching that wet weather really starting to roll in. So picking things up here Sunday morning. Some green on the map, but some darker green and even some pockets of the yellow starting to move in through the afternoon, through the evening, through the overnight. That's where we'll see our steadiest precipitation with this. That will linger into Monday morning and then gradually clear with some lingering showers throughout the day on Monday. And yeah, as you saw there, the potential for some snow flying across New Brunswick. I mean, we could see some flakes flying early Sunday morning and then again Sunday overnight, but not expecting accumulation on the Nova Scotia side.
Well, that is some good news. All right. Well, a Toronto Raptors fan has done what most NBA players dream of. Have a look.
3, 2, 1.
Liam Rodriguez sunk a half-court shot at halftime during Wednesday's final home game of the season. He says he hasn't played organized basketball since elementary school, but spent last weekend taking some practice shots. Boy, did it pay off.
The big prize, Liam wins season tickets for next season. He says he's hearing from a lot of friends wanting to join him, not surprisingly. Liam says he's putting his fiance and future father-in-law at the top of the list to enjoy those games.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is it for us tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.